Kylie.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we're recording live straight from the Hive.
This is our first podcast episode. And today, what we're really going to talk a bit about is why we started Honey and Hive, a bit about our backgrounds, our stories, really just what brought us to this point as Honey and Hive, because not a lot of people know about it, right? There were a lot of ups and downs we had to figure out. And to be honest, we were thrown. We were thrown into this full-time agency, and we're absolutely blessed part of this and to have this as our full-time jobs. But God,
It's been a journey.
it's been a journey, and we hope you enjoy this. We're just gonna be fully open and honest and candid about it and see where this conversation takes us. Do you want to share a little bit about Hus and Honeys and what is that? Because some people listening might not even know what Hustle and Honeys is.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Hustle and Honeys is the first iteration of Honey and Hive, and it was the baby step of where we are today. So we officially started Hustle and Honeys in November of 2020, but it all started with a text from Caitlin to myself in September.
Yeah, it was September. Yeah.
I can vividly remember getting the text. I was in my kitchen cooking after work, and I was like, oh, Caitlin Sorensen texted me. Haven't heard from her in a while. And she asked me if I wanted to start a marketing company together. And I was totally blown away, not expecting that. At the time, I was working for a tech startup, so crazy busy. And Caitlin, you were at a full-time agency already doing full marketing. And so we said, yeah, let's do it. But I needed a month.
Yeah.
Caitlin could use a
We
month.
definitely could.
So we're like, okay, let's reconvene in a month. And then we started Zooming and really talking about it seriously. And then, like I said, November of 2020, we were a go. Do you want to give some insight into where you were at that time and what you were thinking? And
Yeah, I think that, and let me know what you saw too, because obviously TikTok was really big during the pandemic and this was happening. Everyone was on it and everyone started sharing what are some additional ways that I can take my skills online. And that was a common thing that kept coming up and bringing it up. And then I saw people who are close to us doing something similar, like that small business marketing aspect. And I had always, I worked at my internship in college was at a very small business, and I saw firsthand how just having one person on that team can really, specifically dedicated to marketing, can actually help them grow. And we tripled the amount of people we had. It was insane what we were able to accomplish just by running Facebook ads and having social media presence and things like that. And it was something I always wanted to start. It was small business marketing. And then I saw people around me starting to do that. And I just thought if they can do it, we can definitely do it. And I think what really sparked Kylie and I had been working together a lot in college. So we were both on student government and we worked on a lot of projects, a lot of creative projects specifically. And we worked really well together. So when I had this idea, it was really easy to be, oh, that's who I would to pursue this with. And I think what sparked is I actually helped Kylie's roommate. We hadn't seen each other in so long because of the pandemic, but we moved this giant, it was a TV stand. Yeah,
the heaviest piece of furniture.
it was so heavy. It was so heavy. And so we, and so that kind of, I don't know, it sparked, oh, we haven't seen each other or talked to each other in so long. And so, yeah, reached out. We both agreed, let's take a month. And honestly, I think that was a really good decision because we didn't immediately throw ourselves into it. We built a brand. That was a really big thing. And I think that people got really excited about it. And we're really lucky because a lot of our network was really supportive. We actually started a clothing company for a little bit around it. That was fun. And we made everything ourselves.
And
Yeah, we taught ourselves how to screen print and we made everything. And so,
I just forgot about that.
yeah, I was like, locked memory because it took so long. It really took so long to make them. But it was really nice because we had so many of our close friends and families and people even we hadn't talked to in a while were super interested in it. And then, yeah, we were doing that during our full time.
It really started as like a side hustle.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us at that point in November, December 2020 ever would have thought that February 2022 we'd be this.
What were some of your as Hustle and Honeys what was your timeline? Because I had my own thoughts, but what did you imagine for us as Hustle Honeys?
I really imagined Hustlin' Honey's like, to me, it was always a goal,
Mhm.
but I don't think it was ever in my head that, yes, it will be a full-time
Right.
agency. It was always like, "I'd hope, and hopefully we can build there, maybe." I think in my head it was like 5 years. Like, it was really I think just because I never like, at my time at Menlo, for those who don't know Menlo College, where we both went, it's very entrepreneurial. It's in its own major now because it's so popular with the student body, and there's, like, clubs dedicated to it, and I just never related to that. I did an interview, like, right before Hustlin' Honey's with some lady about something entrepreneurial, and I said, "Yeah, just not me. I don't think I'll ever be my own boss. I'll always work for someone else." And I think it took doing it
Yeah.
to realize that, oh, this is really fulfilling and what I like to do. And so I
Yeah.
think when we were in that starting phase, I was still learning that. And so for me, it was always, we'll do this on the side, we'll have our full-time gigs. And
Yeah.
it's just like, almost like a creative outlet at the time to have that full vision and not just be like, I don't know, for me, I was like bottom of totem pole for a team. So I was executing other people's visions. Whereas with Hustlin' Honeys, we were strategizing,
Yeah.
executing.
Yeah, because we were building Hus and Honeys to like to be that eventually.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if people who do know about Hus and Honeys, a lot of people don't know that we didn't even pay ourselves. We weren't even around 6 months before we started. Like I think it was like at the 6 month point, and then we just put all that money into Honey and Hive, which is also really nice. That was a big piece of it too. We had a good starting point, but really our goal was to build up a really good nest egg is a good word where we could rely on that should we pursue something more, want to expand it a bit or scale and have those funds to do. And so I just think that we were setting ourselves up all the whole time to eventually
Mm.
portray this. But I think, yeah, our timeline we talked about was 2 to 5 years. I would agree, like 2 years was probably closer to mine, but I had seen myself in my current job pursuing that for a really long time. And like Kylie said, this was like a really awesome creative outlet. I was doing similar stuff at my agency, but not making an impact on small businesses like we set out to. So it almost was that great feeling of like when we first started, it wasn't really just about the fact that we could do this as a way to make money. It's we were in the pandemic and a lot of people didn't know how to enforce this. And so that was another sweet spot we were able to hit. But yeah, like now we're here. And I think that an important piece we want to talk about is really like what happened that day.
There's one very significant day in our history that got us from that stage of side hustle to our full-time gig as Honey and Hive. So do you want to kick it off and talk about that day?
Yeah, it was a tough day for us. So, as Kylie had mentioned, I was working at a full time agency. And so I was working at a company that specialized in a very specific niche of marketing. And I was hired to do that. And then eventually we just learned our clients, they want to pursue how do we take it was positioning, so in messaging. So, how do we take that messaging and then implement it into all of our other channels? And so I had experience and I have interest in that. And so pretty much I became director is a big word, but I was just the only one in that department of our company where I was taking on these clients, managing their content market. And it was really fun because I understood exactly where they were coming from, how they wanted to implement. It was a very unique position. We were doing really well. My side of the business, I think, was generating a great amount of income for our business. It was really great. I was working my way up, making an awesome salary, but then it was just getting too much for my boss. And so she just brought me over and she just said, look, we don't really want to do this side of the business anymore. And I understood it was unfortunate, but she offered me something really unique. She said, we love working with you. You understand it. So what we want to do is we want to have you be the CEO of your own business within our business. So the company I was working at would be an umbrella, and then I would create my own business separate, but it would be under this umbrella. Only thing is that I would have to stop Hustlin' Honeys. So this passion project or side gig that we've been working on for it was about 4 months at this point because it was around February. Um, yeah, 4 months, and she just said no. It's a competition. Like it's competition to your business, and what we finally realized is that because I talked to a mentor of mine, I talked to my mom even, I called Kylie and let her know, and like the general consensus of it was if in that company, if my failures were my failures and my successes were my successes. And so I would rather have those failures with my team at Hustle and Honeys or whatever that might become, as opposed to under someone else and really own them, especially since we had that going. And something really great my mom told me too was that right now is like the best time to do this because I have a puppy. Like that was pretty much it, the dependency. And then she just said, get a job to pay your rent, to pay for food and for Phoebe's food. Do what you need to do in order to make this happen. But this is a really great time. You don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage. Do what you need to do to try it. And I was like, that's it. Like, and so from there, and then I called Kylie and I let her know what was gonna happen, that I was gonna pursue this. And yeah, before I kind of hop into immediately what happened after that, which was pretty awesome. Kylie's emotions that day.
So you had called me in the morning between some meetings, like just saying like what happened. Here's the situation. I'm forced to choose, and you hadn't made up your mind yet. And I think that was even before you talked to your mom. And yeah, just here's what's happening. I feel like I was having a really busy day too. So I was like, let's just talk.
Yeah.
Get this out
Yeah.
and bye, and we'll talk later. And I cried. I went through that day, I was just crying because in my mind, I was like, it's an amazing opportunity. We're building this. But in my mind, it wasn't like, yeah, Caitlin can just drop her job and do Hustle and Honey. So I was like, of course, she's going to choose her other option and we're done. In my mind, I was already mourning Hustle and Honey. So we hadn't even reached the decision. And then we talked later. We're doing this. I called my mom. We're doing this. Caitlin's doing this for now. And like you said, we were just shoved into it instead of that prior timeline perhaps of waiting years and building it up. So everything just it became really real all at once. And it was so exciting. But yeah, there was a lot of emotions that day.
So it was definitely an emotional day on both sides. And I think that just really speaks to how much we believed in what we were doing and how excited we were, right? Like that in a moment, all of this was just taken away potentially. And that's just not what we wanted. We really saw ourselves doing this so much. And then I told my company that I was going to be leaving and pursuing my own, and they had nothing but nice things to say. They had nothing but nice things to say, nothing but, supportive wishes. And they felt that this was a great opportunity as well. And so what they actually happened to do is, because my boss is very respected in her industry, is a really good way to put it. Is she's very well respected. She's a legend in what she does. But she had a starting point in PR where her boss gave her a couple of clients to get her started with her business. And so she gifted that to me. And so she signed over, instead of just terminating contracts that we were working with, we had a small transitional period for 2 months with our current clients. They then, after those 2 months, got to decide if they wanted to continue working with me. And we had really built up a great relationship. So they are still working with me today. And so I manage those clients, and Kylie supports with those ones, but it has her own. So we started off Honey and Hive officially May 1st was our official date. And so March and April, we were transitioning those clients and showing them what would it look like with just us working on them. And so that meant that I went full time. So I was all in. And during this time, that's when we officially decided Hustle and Honeys, not everyone identifies as a Hustle and Honey. We loved it because we had this vision of we can work with women specifically, we can pick specific clients, but we realized that there were opportunities out there that it made more sense to broaden up our branding a bit. So that's how Honey and Hive was born. I think we brainstormed that name for
A while.
a while. We were on a Zoom call and we brainstormed for a while. But yeah, I think that a big part of that too that was really helpful is, or just any suggestions that I think we have during that period if you're transitioning. And we can talk about this even more because there's definitely a lot of context there. But I think a really big aspect was we had a mentor to help us through. And we're really grateful for that, a mentor that I've worked with. And then I introduced Kylie. We even work on a couple of his companies as well, because he is an entrepreneur. And so he really just showed us the ropes.
Yeah. I think again of just turning it into a fun side hustle into a serious business and kind of tightening up all those loose ends that we were trying to figure out along the way. And we were like, oh, we have time to figure out all these technical or back end operational aspects.
Right.
But once we became full time and now we have a lot more clients, he just really helped us come in and tighten up the ship. So, yeah, like you said, I think that was a key part of that transition from actual hustle and honeys to Honey and Hive.
All right, should we start talking about full time, what that looks like? So, just a preface, I started full time and Kylie stayed at her tech startup and then eventually moved to our alma mater, Menlo, and worked there as a digital marketing manager. And so, for about 3 months, 4 months, maybe, I was just managing on my own full time. And then Kylie did have her own clients. So she was treating Honey and Hive like it was a full time business and a side gig all at the same time. That was a tough time for you. Um, but yeah, I don't have too much to say, to be honest, about my full time experience because I really transitioned from one agency to our own agency, doing very similar work. We were introducing new clients and scaling at the time, so we added a couple of clients onto our docket, but really things did not change too drastically. I think Kylie's story is much more interesting on her transition to full time. I'll let her take away.
Like you said, when we were doing that step of you becoming full time, I was still at my original job that started as an internship while I was still in college and then transitioned. Well, I worked there 2 years total. And I started my second to last semester of college. I came in as an intern and was doing school and then transitioned to a full time role. As any startup, there was a lot of roles under my belt. So I started in sales. I applied for a marketing position but there just wasn't room on the team. So they'd always known I was interested. And then I randomly just made a presentation deck for our sales team because we needed one. We didn't really have any solid materials. And my manager at the time was like, I didn't know you had these kinds of skills. So
That's funny.
that was kind of, yeah. So that was the first step of doing half. And for a while, I did both, would assist with marketing materials, more so like content creation and work on the sales. And then eventually I stepped more and more. It was always a hybrid role. So I never was doing marketing full time, but it was always in conjunction with whatever other role I was on with was sales and then more of like a talent support role for influencers. So like I said, there was a myriad of responsibilities and duties, and they were very much focused on fast growth, high performance. So there was a lot of 12-hour days and then just trying to figure out where to fit in Honey and Hive or Hustle and Honey's, whichever time period you're looking at, into the mix. So yeah, there were a lot of late nights at that time, but it was so worth it. Like you said, like that mindset of just doing this job to pay the bills. And then really my passion was our business and our clients. And then trying to find the time to quit. To be very honest, I think just where we were with the company, we couldn't support both of us full time in the beginning. So that's why we had that in between period. And then, like you said, our alma mater, a friend of ours, was holding the digital marketing manager position at Menlo College. And she was going to move on to a different company. So I got a bit of a heads up that this marketing position would be opening. It was Menlo. We are both fanatic about Menlo. So I was like, of course I'm interested. And obviously it would still be a full-time position, but just the culture, I think, of a college, a nonprofit, and a sole role on digital marketing management instead of everything between three different departments felt much more realistic to balance that with this role at Honey and Hive. So it took maybe 2 months from finding out about the role to actually being able to interview and then eventually getting the position. But that was an amazing transition. Like I said, they're also just more focused on work-life balance, a lot more understanding. So I was still doing everything of a full-time job, but much more 9 to 5 instead of 8 to 8. So a lot more wiggle room to fit in our clients. But then yeah, we just kept growing, which is not a bad thing, but it came to a point where it just wasn't realistic or even fair, is how I put it to my manager, to be splitting the time between both because it just felt like both were being neglected. There wasn't enough time to really give my all in either. And of course, I was trying to prioritize our efforts because in my head, I knew that was the long term goal and on like obvious next steps. So I was giving my fair share to Menlo, but like I said, it just wasn't fair anymore. So in the fall, I did quit that position. But when I had to do that horrible breakup Zoom, we pitched the idea of them staying on with Honey and Hive, at least for a transitional period, just to fill the gap. So I ended up loving that idea and came on as a client, and we are still happy to be working with them. They have filled the role, so now we are working with them in a different scope. But yeah, we're still really happy to be working with them and just being able to support our alma mater and the students and stay connected with alumni. So it was a really, I was so sad to leave that. We had to, it was like I would have stayed. If there was no Honey and Hive, I would definitely, like the president of Menlo on my first day, he told me, "Careful, you might never leave." And I definitely think if
Yeah.
we didn't have this, I would be there for a long haul. So it was a tough decision, but just for the sake of our business, which I said is like the full-time goal, it just had to happen. But yeah, we're really happy to be working with them still.
Yeah, and I think that it we were really grateful that we were, or at least Kylie was going into a role where I almost feel like they understood that was the end goal, and they knew about Honey and Hive, like so supportive of it. When Kylie ultimately told them, they were so open to the idea of us coming also, and we pitched it as, now you're getting two of us too, because I work on it as well a bit. And it's been refreshing being an alumni coming back and almost full of circle, because we were
Yeah.
both very involved on campus and are still involved outside of our contract. And so it was really awesome. It was able to work out. And then we're still working with them even after they filled it. It's been great. But yeah, let's talk about maybe like the first months of entrepreneurship. So, what were some of the, because I was in it for just a little bit longer than you. So, how was that initial shock of, okay, now you're not in a rigid 9 to 5, even though we do work a 9 to 5 because our clients are a 9 to 5. That's something we'll have to talk about later. But like making your own schedule, making your own to dos based on what everyone's going on. Like, how did you adapt to that? Because I think that's a good word for what we had to do, is we really had to adapt to a new workplace environment.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there were definitely ups and downs. The very first emotion I feel like was just like a sigh of relief. Like I no longer had to feel like almost guilty to be out a client out, and it's just like, okay, like I can actually do this. I don't have to, if I snuck, yeah, like you said, our clients are working 9 to 5. So even though I'm trying to work on clients after hours of my traditional jobs, there's still client messages that come through, fires to put out. And yeah, like I said, I didn't have to feel guilty or awkward about handling those things during working hours. So that felt just so great to be able to put all of my energy, all of our efforts into supporting our clients, keeping them happy, working on their account. But yeah, it's definitely was also a big transition into fully being my own boss. And I don't want to say having a full-time job was like a crutch, but there was just that other expectation, having to go with those hours first and relying on all of that first. And now this is it. This is everything.
It's like a structure almost.
Yeah.
Like having a 9 to 5 is very structured. You taking time off, for example, like you don't have to necessarily make sure everything is all in order because you tell them and then someone else covers for you
Yep.
because you have that. Or even just that, not you're always gonna be working for sure 9 to 5. That's something else too, is technically we can work whenever we need to because it's not like, as long as our clients are happy. So that, I think that safety that you're talking about, I definitely viewed that as you have something to rely on, that your schedule is relied on this because that's how somebody else implemented it, whether it's, the work society or your actual company.
Yeah, I think safety is a good, like a safety net.
Hmm.
Like you said, there's a huge team. Like we have ourselves and our small team, but it's not the same as a whole organization and marketing department behind you. And yeah, a boss to make some of those decisions. Don't get me wrong, I love being my own boss.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just wish you could sweep in and tell your boss you're feeling good and have them figure out the pieces of whatever's going on that day. There is an argument for staying with the 9 to 5. I
Yeah.
think we definitely just have our own visions and goals beyond that, but I don't blame some of the people who stay with it. It is easier, I would say. It's easier.
I think so too. And to continue on what you're saying about bosses too, there's almost a safety net in that regard also where, you know, different from where, because we're a client and service based entrepreneurs or agency. And when we mess up, that's our mess up. And
Nowhere
to
to
hide, nowhere to hide. And that was a lesson that we both definitely had to learn coming into this. In a 9 to 5, of course, you have your managers, and your managers can sometimes clean up that mess for you or help you work through things. And I think that we just had to rely, and equals in our business. So we had to rely on each other for that. But there's no person with more experience than you to tell you everything's going to be okay because you did this. It was about figuring out. So I think bosses was definitely one. Here's our first stinger. Those will be our hot takes that we'll share with you. So stinger number one, social media management has been very glamorized. I'm sure it's popped up on social media, things like that. Big one that we don't agree with is you're only your own boss. That's not true. Like,
not case.
it's not the case because, or even the 9 to 5 thing, like, that's another thing or two, is they're both together. Like Kylie said, you have all these bosses, and that was a big thing to learn is that you have to adjust to their expectations of you also, not just who they are as people, what they expect and things, or what they like how they work, but it's their expectations. They all have different levels of what they want you to achieve for them, and making sure that you have specific metrics in place and specific goals that you're meeting as well. It's not the normal just 9 to 5. You're hitting these goals based on your path, right? You have 20 different paths with people. And then to touch on the 9 to 5 piece of it, social media managers will say, I can work any hours I want, blah, blah, blah. But how we view it is we're online when our clients are online. Another stinger is boundaries are important. We can go on and on about that, but we're on when our clients are on 9 to 5. Like sometimes there'll be a stray email at 9 o'clock that we can respond to really quickly. But for the most part, they work the 9 to 5. And so it's important to be alert and ready when our clients might need something, or if they want to hop on a quick call. Not treating it as so makes it harder for clients to get a hold of you or to be productive in those things. And that's just one of the things we thought was so interesting, that we heard people talking about this all the time. Wow, that's just working 4 hours a week and outside of the 9 to 5, like that's amazing. We got into it. What are these?
How?
How?
Who
Who
are these people?
are you, like, what magic do you possess? Or do you just have your process down so much, as which we aspire to do, is have a process so down where people can just like insert and the strategy works so well and it works for almost anyone. Is that realistic? Probably not. We don't think so either. Yeah, I just think that those are some of the really tough lessons that came out of entering entrepreneurship for the first time. Some of the positives, what would you say are some of the positives from
The positives, like I said, I think it's really fulfilling
Mhm.
to be your own boss, kind of like when you were given that option of you would be running a company either way. So it wasn't like you were losing out on that leadership and development of your own self. But do you want to build that all for someone else or do you want to build it for yourself? So I think just everything, all of our accomplishments and all of our failures reflect back on us. But I think either way, the only word I can think of is fulfilling. It just feels good to know that all of that is from us. Like we built this
Yeah.
from the hustle and honeys ground up. And that's all really reflected, I think, in our work, our testimonials from customers, like everything all just goes back to our efforts. And it just feels so good to me.
It really does, and I think we do get that validation from our clients and customers about how something like things that some of our values, I could say, is that, we wanna be a part of their team. Like, we don't
Yeah.
wanna just be just another contractor. And then we want them to feel like we're a part of their team and that we can help them where needed, that their wins are our wins and their failures are our failures. And we work together to figure out how to turn that into a success. And we've heard that a lot. We've heard people tell us that or rely on us. They feel so comfortable that they can even ask us for more. And putting up boundaries again, we think it's important not to be taken advantage of and have those conversations about scope. But honestly, we're happy to help people because they see that value in us because we do add that team factor. I would say some of the positives that I've experienced through this is absolutely to echo what you're saying, that fulfillment of we did this, we set out to do it. Honestly, too, a huge statistic is that in the first 6 months, small businesses fail. And so I think that something that we're really proud of is that we put systems in place to help us not fail. Like we have one, a really good tip for client facing service business is figure out a feeder for you. Like for clients, what is that feeder for you? Try to figure out what that is before establishing a cold sales process because that could help you, whether it's outreach to your network or you find an individual that's really, or a whole industry that could easily give you clients. That's a good one. And then financially speaking, I think we set ourselves up really well for success where we were really diligent on making sure we saved a certain percentage every month where our run rate is good so that because things happen, pandemics happen as we saw. So having those safety nets in place, yeah, I just think that a really positive of what we did was we really did set up those good processes and now we're learning more about the nitty gritty of the back end and such. We have the main stuff down, but learning the back end. And then I think in some of the positives too, um, from just like the client facing side is we really do listen to what they want too. We've been learning how important it is for customer service also, like forming those relationships. I feel like we do a really good job of that is not just showing up with the intent to just get the job done. Right? Understanding them as individuals. A client this week, sometimes we miss meetings. Like sometimes we miss meetings. And she said, "Oh my gosh, girlfriend, I totally forgot the meeting. I'll get everyone on." It was something so small of her calling me girlfriend. It's a friendly thing. It's not just like a boring client. "I'm so sorry. Please excuse my no." I can just call her and say, like, "Hey, are you joining?" "Oh my gosh, girlfriend, I keep forgetting." I was like, "Oh, are we friends?" But or even just asking other kids or how vacations go. It's that goes a long way. Sending gifts. Yeah, those are some of the positives that I've witnessed.
I think one more I like to add on about speaking to the clients is that something I think unique about us is that I don't think we have two industries that are the same. Between all of our
Not
clients.
we don't. Yeah.
So that's a choice we've taken to not niche down into one industry. And to me, that's kept it really fun. But I think in some, like my other positions, you're focusing on the same thing every single day. It gets a bit monotonous. And honestly, it's just so much to learn about all the different industries. We've randomly become experts in all these different areas. Yeah. I don't think we'd ever thought we would know about at all, let alone know how to target their audience and potential customers and the ins and outs of different competitors. And that's something that's kept working at like just day to day, really interesting and fun.
It really does. And I think that a lot of people try to stray away from that because there's almost that safety in knowing an industry, how that works, making sure that you can repeat the process because it's the same industry. Once we get really good at it too, because we have found differences and we found similarities too about the process and what works and being able to replicate it, but then tweaking things, then we can dive in on that. We can really focus on that, but then continuing to have that interesting industry, learning more, really jumping into it. It almost exercises our brains too. So we're also expanding our creativity. We're not just relying on the same things we're looking at. We're applying what we learned for one client to in another industry to another client in a different industry and just it gives almost a fresh perspective. Totally. Yeah, I think just to kind of summarize this, our journey has been interesting and this is where we were meant to be. We have big plans for the future. And really, the point of us starting this podcast is we have learned so much along the way. We really have. And so being able to share that with you all and to empower other businesses, empower other individuals to also start these journeys, because if we can do it, you can do it. It's really that simple.
Thank you so much for listening to our first episode. We have so many more planned, many fun topics, a lot more learnings, a lot more stingers coming your way. So stay tuned on this new journey of ours.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.